Not one, not two. It's the show where you told you're not you. It's nothing in the middle, nothing in the middle, nothing in the middle, nothing in the middle of nothing.
Hi, I'm Joey Lott, and welcome to the 6th episode of Nothing in the Middle, where today we have a new backdrop, and that's because we're keeping things fresh and real here. Nothing in the middle. Yes, but I, as usual, have my questions over here on the side. Today it's on my right, your left. Also trying to switch it up. And so I'll get started. The first one says, I read your article on why truth isn't very popular. My question is, once we are dead, are we still being? Or is it that no one can answer that question because they'd be dead? Sounds like a silly question, but what I'm asking is, whatever we are that's animating this body, does that remain eternally? Okay, so let's take a look at that. First part is, once we are dead, are we still being? And the presumption there is that there's someone who is being. But if you take a look, you can see if you can find it. Is there actually someone who is being? Is there, and later on the question is there something that remains eternally? So you see, is there anything ever that even could be seen as even standing a chance of existing eternally? If which is tricky because we don't, it's very highly conceptual, that notion of eternally. So there's a lot to look at here. First, we'll tackle death. So the notion is that there's someone who can die. So I asked you to take a look and see, is there someone who is being? And beyond concept, there's nothing actually that can be found that is being. So being is not something. Being is also conceptual. I mean, anything that we speak about is conceptual, but it may point to the actuality of what is seemingly happening, which is nothing. Trying to think of the word here. It's nothing occult, right? It's not like some sort of mystery that needs to be understood and solved because there's some value to be had from that. I'm just pointing to the immediate obviousness of what is, and we can speak of that in many different ways. So being is one way, aliveness is another way, but don't get hung up on the words or the concepts that we attach to those words, because it's definitely not that. It's just what is inescapable. So there's no possibility of missing it because it's inescapable. It's this right now as it is, always the case. And so if you look to see, is there someone being? No. There's no possibility of finding someone who is being because there's nothing there. The mistake that we often make is we imagine that the experience requires a experiencer. So we apply that to the idea of being. We say, there's being, which is obviously an action taking place, and there's someone who is taking that action. There's the beer, the I ammer, and this is where we get hung up, because we assume that there's someone who is being, and then we're looking for that one, but we can't ever find it. So then there's the frustration. And then this leads to all kinds of religion and belief and concepts, more and more concepts just getting piled on top of one another. And so if you just take an honest look, though, you'll see that actually there was never anything there. It was just an assumption. So if there's no one who's being, then at least logically, it's unlikely that there's anyone who's going to be dead, right? And in fact, if you start to take a look, you'll see that death as some sort of polar opposite of life is just a fiction as well. It's a concept. Because the actuality of what is not, it can't even speak of it. It's honestly, to even entertain the notion of death, or the context for the question, is a bit misleading, because in truth there's only just this right now. So if you want to call this death, that's fine, then we can do that. Or if we want to call this life, we can do that. If we want to call it life, death, we can do that. But we don't need to call it anything, because it regardless of what it's called or what understanding may or may not seemingly be present, there's only ever just the immediacy of what is, which can't be understood anyway. So it does you no good to understand it. I recognize that I'm not offering you a very succinct and direct response to your question, but there are a lot of pieces to this that we could take a look at in great detail, but I'm not sure if that's entirely necessary. So I'm just kind of dancing around it a little bit. Right. So then the next part of the question is whatever is animating the body, does that remain eternally? So again, to even entertain that question is misleading because of the notion of eternally, that there's an eternity that somehow exists outside of this right now. But if that was true, you should be able to find it. It should exist outside of now, if there is such a thing. So you can take a look and see if that's possible to find. But it's not, because there's no such thing. There's only just this right now. So whenever we speak about something other than this, that is going to be misleading. Which sometimes we do, and that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not suggesting that we should then turn into the non-dual police, where we have to watch our language all the time and, make sure that we don't use personal pronouns and we don't ever use any tenses at all. Let's just do away with tenses. There's only, we could only use present participle, I think is what you'd call that, right? That just with ing attached to everything. And we wouldn't have any sort of, we wouldn't use prepositions, so personal prepositions. Why we wouldn't use any prepositions, because we wouldn't want to make any distinctions between anything. There wouldn't be a car. There would be carring. But then even to speak of carring would suggest that there's something other than that. So you see, it gets ridiculous. So we can use the language that we have, but we can also at the same time recognize that it's merely, it's like art, I mean, it's not to be, it's not to be understood. The understanding sometimes happens, and that can be interesting. That's an interesting experience, and that's nice. But then the understanding is not necessary, nor is it actually all that useful, because then as soon as you think you've understood something, you've boxed it in artificially into some kind of conceptual construct, which creates the sense that there's something there that we're actually speaking about, but it's not the case in our actual experience. So the language is only just, it's art, and we can paint with it, and we can express with it, and we can enjoy the texture of it, and that's it. So we can speak, so I can entertain the question, but I just want to be clear that in doing so it will be a bit misleading, because if we take a look, we'll see that there is no such thing as eternity. It's just a concept. It's like a brushstroke. It's nice, but it doesn't mean anything, and it's not actually referring to something that really exists. It's just a concept. So it exists as a concept, but that's it. Which means it has no substance. Okay, so is there something that animates the body that exists eternally? Which isn't exactly what was asked, but it's a more interesting question to phrase it that way, more helpful, I think. So I'll look at it that way. Is there something that animates the body that exists eternally? And no, there's not, because that's also only a concept. I mean, you can take a look and see, is it possible to find something that animates the body? We have lots of concepts: soul, spirit, jiva. I'm sure there's something in every culture, more or less, that suggests that there's some kind of spirit or something that animates the body. It's certainly curious because there is, from the context of assuming that there's an individual, then it seems like a sensible, reasonable explanation or a theory for how that phenomenon seems to occur is to suggest that there must be an animating force. But if you take a look at that whole context, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because we can't actually find any individual. There's only just what's happening, which cannot be constrained. The actuality of what is cannot be constrained by concept, because the concept can't touch what is actually here. Because it's not referencing what's actually here. I mean, this is hopefully this is obvious. Like, whether we have a concept for what is makes no difference. I mean, the pre-conceptual experience is still the same as the conceptual experience. It's just that there's no sense that, or there's no belief that the concept is describing what is actually happening, or that it offers some kind of understanding, or is helpful in describing the meaning of what is happening, because it's obvious in non-conceptual experiencing that there is no meaning, because there's no context in which meaning could take place. There's no time for the meaning to occur. There's no other to offer some kind of contrast for meaning. So I've been going roundabout on this one, but let's see if I've addressed it. You want to know, you want to know, is there a way to avoid death? Basically, is the question. Is there a way? That's always, it's like, can I get some security so that I don't have to be afraid of the unknown? And no, there's no way to avoid the insecurity, because insecurity is all that is. There isn't anything other than that. So, in a sense, I know I'm going to sound like I'm flip-flopping. I'm going to give a completely different take on it. But in a sense, all that is ever happening is death. I mean, if death is meant to describe or point to the insecurity, the unbounded nature of existence, let's say, then death is all that's happening, because there never is any way to contain or control anything. I mean, just take a look in your own experience and you can see there's never been a possibility of control. There's only ever been the possibility of the illusion of control, but it's an impossibility because there's nothing that can be grasped or held onto, because there's actually no substance to any of it. I mean, I can give you some examples, so just to make clear the point. That if you think you know what something you think you have, there's something that you can grasp, like let's say a baseball. And you say, okay, now I've got a baseball, but good luck with that, because what are we even talking about? I mean, whatever that thing is that you imagine, if you can come at it from so many different angles and you never actually find any real thing there other than conceptually. The baseball is totally conceptual. The actuality of what is not a baseball. It couldn't be. There's there's a color, there's a texture, there's a whatever else, sensations of the touch or whatever. But that's it. I mean, and those are I've sort of deconstructed this in various ways in some of my writing. If you just start to take a look, you can see that the thing that you think exists cannot be found. It's only just these qualities, and the qualities are also conceptual, because the thing itself can't be found. I mean, you can't and there's for a very simple reason, which is that the one who is imagined, that the separate one who could experience it or who could find it, also doesn't exist. So the thing that's being searched for doesn't exist. The thing that's doing the searching doesn't exist. It all is collapsed into just the immediacy of what is. So in that immediacy, there's no possibility of finding a separate thing, because a separate thing is totally conceptual. Has to be in contrast to something else, but you can't ever find something else. Because something else is also conceptual. I mean, there's only what is. Went off into a bit of a weird territory there. But if you've been watching this, you're used to that by now, I expect. That's a long time on the first question. Let's see about the second question. When it's seen that there isn't actually someone separate from what's happening, what happens to the sense of being located? Life appears to be perceived from... actually, I'm going to there's more, but I'm going to pause there. I mean, my answer to that is just take a look. Find out. Right now. Don't put it off, because it says, when it's seen that there isn't actually someone separate from what's happening. And that's not something that requires time. In fact, it only occurs when in the absence of time, which is right now. So, just take a look right now. And notice that usually there's an idea that there's some kind of, like, I'll know when it happens because it will be some kind of really special experience. Like orgasm. There's no way you're going to miss that. So, it's like, we tend to think that it seems to me that we usually think that there's some really nice, pleasant, exciting, dramatic, some kind of profound experience that is called, what is it? Seeing that there isn't actually someone separate from what's happening. So we're waiting for it all the time. Like, is it happening now? What about now? What about now? Is this it? Maybe it's going to happen soon. Okay, I think it might be happening. Is this it? That's kind of what we're doing. I'm saying, don't wait. You don't need to wait for some kind of verification of, you just take a look and see right now, is there actually anyone separate? And people often say, well, yeah, there's someone separate because I'm here and the whatever, fill in the blank is over there, the baseball is over there. And so that means that there's separation. What I'm saying is, just take a look without the concepts. So if you're referring to concepts for an answer, then that's not what I'm talking about. So just set that aside for now. Just let it go for a moment. Just be willing to explore without all that baggage, just to see the actuality of what is with innocence. And then it's possible to see that there is no separation to be found. The separation is only conceptual. So as soon as the concept is dropped, it's clear, not conceptually clear, not because concept is never clear, but it's clear in a very immediate and direct way, in an uncluttered way, that this is it, and that there's no separation. Because the separation cannot be found. It was only ever just imagined, and everything that was held up as evidence of the existence of separation still exists exactly as it ever did. So I'm not suggesting that everything's going to melt and morph into some kind of goo or something. That's just another idea. It doesn't sound like it could be pleasant, but it doesn't sound especially pleasant. So it doesn't need to be anything special. It's just this. It's perfectly ordinary. It's always been the case. Always has been the case that there's no separation. And there's no one who could have seen the separation, and there's no one who could discover that there is no separation. There's no one to do the seeing. It's just that the seeing is happening, and it's recognized that that's it. That's not a special thing. That's just the clear seeing of what already has been the case. So, I'm going to see if I answered that question, if I addressed that question. Right. Maybe. There's more to the question. Let's see if there's anything else. Life appears to be perceived from a particular perspective. Does the dropping of a sense of being located remove the idea of having a position? No. Or maybe. But I'm not. I don't know how that would be, because again, the question, I'm just assuming, because it's usually it sounds very much like it, that it's assumed that there's some kind of special new experience that's going to happen, and that will be a confirmation that some kind of important shift has occurred for someone. And that may or may not happen. If you're lucky, it won't, because it would just be misleading. It's distracting to have some kind of big, profound fireworks sort of shift, because then that stuff that happens is confused for something important, which it's not. It couldn't possibly be. So the idea that some kind of the experience as it is will have to transform fundamentally in some sort of strange way, like, you'll start seeing I'm not sure, you see like ultraviolet and infrared, and you'll all of a sudden you'll realize that there's been spirits walking around all the time. I see dead people. Or like Jesus will be hanging out at your side and Buddha at the other side. And I've always wondered what I assume they're talking about the Buddha, but I don't know why it has to be capitalized either. Maybe anyway. But that stuff doesn't have to happen, and who cares if it does anyway? It's not important. It's totally insignificant. And so, in the same way, this idea that the experience of a position has to change is not helpful. I don't think it. I mean, it's helpful to see it for what it is, which is it's a hang-up that can just be let go, because the experience as it is may be very similar to how it's always been. The blue might still look blue, and I probably still see in the visible spectrum of light and things like that, and you still feel all kinds of things. Feeling, like all kinds of experiences can happen, including anger and frustration and depression and grief and all kinds of stuff. It's just that the belief in the primacy of concept as some like as if it was actually a description of reality becomes transparent. So blue still appears much the same as it ever did, but now it's known that it's seen clearly that there's no blue. There's just what's happening. So the experience that was called having a position, same experience, but it's now seen that that there is no position. There's no one to have a position. There's no such thing as having a position. It was just a misunderstanding. That's all. So it was just like, okay, so it's like if you were afraid of the boogeyman in the dark. Does turning on the light remove the boogeyman? Or does it just reveal that there never was one? So it doesn't actually fundamentally change what's there. It just removes the clutter of the mistaken beliefs. Even that statement's a little bit misleading, but I'm going to leave it there for now because we got more questions. Why? So next question: Why do we not know? Why do we not know we are not only the source of everything, but everything? Hopefully you understood that. Do you think it's the plan, or is it all happening spontaneously? I believe that God, or self, both capitalized by the way, doesn't know what will happen next. Yet some sages claim to see the future. Life seems so cruel to let us be in the dark about who we really are. That's why I think it's not a plan. It's just the way it must be. This is what makes life so interesting to me and to many others who suffer too much and want the suffering to end. Figuring it all out and then living in the mystery, detached and yet very joyful. Okay. A lot of stuff in there. So why do we not know that we are not only the source of everything, but everything? I'm not sure I understand the question, to be honest with you. But why do we not know that? So any question, I don't need to understand the question precisely, but I would say any question that starts with why do we not know, or why do we know, or why anything, simply because because any concept is believed to be true. That's all. So you can just question any concept, just see if there's any real foundation for it? Is there actually any substance to it? If it's impossible to find any foundation or any substance that is actually there and actually real, which, by the way, it is impossible because there's never anything there, then it's possible just to give it up. Which isn't better, it's just less cluttered. It's more pleasant, I find. That why well, that's all I can say about that part. Do you think it's the plan, or is it all happening spontaneous? It's definitely spontaneous because there's no time. You take a look and find out. I'm sitting on a very small chair today, and it's making my butt cheeks go numb. I believe that even God herself doesn't know what will happen next, right? Yeah. Yes. Because for many reasons. One is that there is no God and there is no self. You can take a look and see. I mean, like I've said before, maybe that's very strong language to use. We can definitely say that that God and or self cannot be found. That's a milder way of putting it. So there's definitely nothing there that can be found. So if it can't be found, why assume that there's something there? We could just say, the boogeyman does not exist. Well, at least it can't be found. So why assume that it exists if it can't be found? No one's ever found it. Ever. No one's ever found God. So what does not exist couldn't possibly know anything. And even if something exists, can't possibly know about what doesn't exist. So if we're saying what happens next, there's no next. There's nothing that could possibly happen next, because that next is a concept. There's only ever this. So yeah, some claim to see the future. It's true. I mean, I'm gonna sound a little cheeky here, but you can call up phone psychics and they'll tell you lots of stuff. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, there are a lot of charlatans. A lot of people perfectly happy to have some fame and take your money. Life seems so cruel to let us be in the dark about who we really are, but there's no possibility of being in the dark about who you really are, because there is no one who you really are. There's just this. And it's really very, 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 very simple. So completely simple that you can't understand it. But that's fine, because the good news is it's always the case. So it doesn't matter if it's understood or not. It's already actually what is. You can't achieve it, you can't find it, you can't discover it, you can't lose it, you can't do anything with it. It's just what is. Yeah, I think I addressed that one. Okay, if all that exists is what's happening, then I'm assuming what's happening is a different experience for me right now than what's happening in your experience right now. Even though it's all just what's happening, it appears personal or different to me, because seeing is seeing different forms right now through me. Seeing, in that case, is capital S with quotations around it. I mean, it's like an individual entity seeing. Through me, then through you. All those seeing, also with a capital S, is still just seeing. Yes. But doesn't the fact that the forms and experiences are different for you right now than for me makes seeing somewhat personal. Yes. And so I actually responded to this person and I said, can you find your experience and my experience non-conceptually? So in other words, is there the whole notion, the presumption is that there is actually self and other. There's my experience and there's your experience. And that those experiences are different. That's the whole context for the question. If that's not true or provable or findable, then the whole thing kind of falls apart. So then the person responded saying, I can find my experience non-conceptually because it is a direct experience, but I cannot find your experience non-conceptually. But does that mean your experience doesn't exist? This is where I get confused. Yeah. So it's a bit of semantics, but I would argue that you can't find your experience. There's no, because it's still, if you insist that you can find your experience, there's still there's an owner who's claiming that experience, my experience, and that's where the confusion comes from. Because it says my experience. This is my experience, and so there's already like the first step into concept. Concept is fine. It's just an observation that when there's the belief in concept as reality, that's where the confusion comes from. So it's useful just to explore, see that the concept is only concept. So it's fine. It's allowed. It's all fine. But it's just seen for what it is. So then that the ownership, the claim on this is my experience, it's fine. You don't need to police that. Like, no, get rid of mine, no me, no I, no. Don't have to do that. Just see it for what it is, which is just, it's like artists paint strokes. It's the same as with the language. It's fine. It's totally allowed. But it's totally transparent and meaningless and substanceless. So, when that's seen, then the confusion kind of disappears, or at least it may disappear, because then, if it's not my experience, but it's we tell the truth about it, which is that it's just what's happening. It's experience, or it's experiencing. There's no one who's doing it. So, earlier there was the use of the language that said seeing, capital S, like, this, we do this a lot. We say being, the capital B, and so then being, which is it's a gerund or a present participle, right? It's expressing apparent movement or action or being or happening or something, some kind of aliveness that's occurring now. But and that's only it's just a pointer, right? But that's what that is meant to express. Being, seeing, experiencing, happening. But we then turn that into an entity. Being, capital B. And try to figure out, well, who is being? Is it God? Is it Krishna? Is it self with a capital S? Am I being? Right? I mean, trust me, I did this a lot. Trying to figure it out, trying to understand it. So we do that with seeing. We can do it with anything. But as if there's a seer who is, so seer with a capital S, like the absolute seer. Another name for that is seeing with a capital S. But they're both fiction. It's all a fiction. Because in actuality, you cannot find any such entity. There's no one there. So, if you just let go of the concepts and let go of all the baggage and just tell the truth about what's actually happening. You can't really actually say anything about it. You can't form any opinion or concept about it because it's too immediate and boundless. There's no way to contain it or understand it. So when all that baggage and concept is let go, then experiencing is just experiencing. It's just what's happening. There's no one doing it, no one experiencing it, no one to take ownership of it. And then the confusion falls away because there's no need to figure out other. If there's no self, there's no other. It just becomes obvious. There's no reference point, so how could there be other? And to be clear, everything is still happening, just the same as it always was. So the appearance that was called self and the appearance that was called other, it's fine. It's totally fine. Nothing needs to change about that. It's just that, like watching a movie, for example, you don't need to try to figure out, which character am I? And what's my relationship to the others? This is not important. It's just a movie. There's no stake in it. There's no sense of it's not important. There's no deep meaning, and it's certainly not personal. So yeah. Okay. Next question. I always think these are going to be really short, and then I just Okay. If I get it correctly, it seems that what you call direct experience and Nisargadatta's I am. I love it when people put stuff about Nisargadatta in these questions, by the way. Are the same thing. I've always been a bit confused by what Nisargadatta's book is called, why it's called I am that. To me, I am is pure subjectivity, and I am that implies I and the other. Why wasn't the book titled I am instead of I am that? My best understanding is that maybe I am that means that I and that are the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, you got it right there in the very end. I mean, I have no idea, to be honest with you, but there is a I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this question, but there is a I suspect that the title of the book is a translation of a expression. It's a Sanskrit expression, and I don't remember it offhand. It's like tat. I don't remember what it is, but it would translate as I am that, and it's that meaning it's like Brahman and Atman are one is basically what it's saying, which is what is written here at the end. It says that means that I and that are the same thing. So it's just without spending any more time on it. Basically, yes, it's just saying that there's a collapse of the sense of separation, and it's all seen to be one. Okay. Next question. I love this one. This one's great. The first word is Papaji. This is wonderful. I got a Nisargadatta and a Papaji one right back to back. Papaji said, nothing ever happened, and I believe you touch on this concept also. It does seem like my wonderful wedding on a Caribbean beach last April that took a lot of planning and money, I bet, yeah, did indeed never happen, or it at least seems now non-existent, which is true in a sense, yeah. If that is true and the wedding trip never happened, then why and how do I have pictures of it? Yeah. it's not. It's never what you think, right? Because if you try to understand any of these statements, you won't. And the statement, like, nothing ever happened, nothing happens, it's true, but as a pointer, not a pointer to what is immediate, obvious, and totally inescapable, which is just this. Can't be understood. No possibility of understanding it, because understanding requires that there's separation, because there has to be someone who can, well, there doesn't have to be someone who can do the understanding, but there has to be understanding, which has to be separate from that which is understood. And that which is understood has to be bound or contained in some way. Otherwise, if it's unbounded, then there's no way to understand it, because it's not. If you want to understand something, you have to at least know what it is that you're understanding. If it's unbounded, then there's no way to grasp it, right? Because understanding, like, we use the expression to wrap your mind around something. To understand it, you wrap your mind around it. It's a good expression because it describes fairly well that there has to be the ability to contain that which is understood. Otherwise, it's not possible to understand, right? Because unbounded means infinite. If it's infinite, there's no way to understand it, because it doesn't have a beginning or an end. So what is it that's being understood? There's no way to know. So, what was the question? Oh, right. So, trying to understand the immediacy of what is and the obviousness of what is impossible. But it's not necessary to understand, because it already is. So you can test this out right now, just for a moment. Notice that what is right now, which is just what's obvious, it's totally simple, unavoidable. You don't have to worry that you could miss it. You cannot screw this up. It's just what is obvious right now. Notice that what is obvious right now, and just so I'm clear about that, like, it might be what you call door or window or car or bird or whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's never actually just that, right? Because it's the totality. But that's what I'm talking about, the ordinariness. So that which is totally obvious exists without concept. So before you have the concept door or bird, before there's any sense that any of it can be divided up, there's just the immediacy and the obviousness of it. So understanding, which is divisive, right? Because you have to, in order to understand, like we said, you have to compartmentalize it. You have to say, okay, there's a bird, there's a door, there's a baseball, by applying labels and concepts. That is never the understanding is not the actuality of what is, nor does it affect in any way the actuality of what is. So what is being called door or bird or baseball or whatever exists prior to that description, prior to the so-called understanding. So back to the question about, if nothing happens. If you try to understand that, you necessarily have to try and divide it up into discrete things that can be understood, that can you can wrap your mind around. But as soon as you try to do that, then you end up with these questions like, well, yeah, but how, why, I think I understand, but how do I have pictures of something that didn't happen? That's not really what's being pointed to. What's being pointed to is that because see, I can't give you an understanding of it. I mean, I could talk about it, but it'd be more helpful, I think, to just experience the directness of it right now. So you can notice that right now if you just let all the concepts go, I'm not suggesting you try to get rid of them. It's not a strategy for getting some other different experience. It's not about becoming enlightened or anything. It's just in an instant right now, it's possible just to let go. It's like relaxing. It's like if you're holding something in your hand, you just relax the hand and let it go, let it drop. So you're not getting rid of it, you're just letting go, hands off. So like you're letting go of the concepts, so the concepts may still be here, apparently. That's fine. But you don't pick them up again, just for a little bit. Then you just see, without picking up a concept, is anything happening? You remain relaxed. Is anything happening? It's very relaxing. Yeah. So then it doesn't, the problems that arise in trying to understand something seem not to be problems because there's nothing to understand. There are photographs, apparently. There's images, thoughts, memories, ideas, concepts, feelings in the body. There's colors and textures and sounds and smells, and all of that is apparently happening. But if it's not grasped, which it can't be grasped anyway, because as soon as it's seen that there's no one to grasp, and there's no one to do the grasping, and there's nothing to grasp, then the meaning of all of it dissolves, because there's never was any meaning. It was just it's like a phantom, or it's like fog lifting off the mountains. So yeah, I don't know if I've addressed that one satisfactorily or not, but if not, you can feel free to ask me again. Next question. I have read a teacher advise someone to identify the desires behind the suffering they are going through and work with those desires to, presumably, alleviate the suffering. Our desires are relevant in non-duality and are just another complication that distracts from direct experiencing. Sounds like there's a strategizing happening there, like searching for a way to not suffer. And I would suggest that it's probably more useful just to see what is suffering. Because a lot of the time we're running from, or not really, but we think it feels as though we're running from, trying to avoid something, but we're not actually sure what it is. Maybe we have a vague idea, or maybe we have a very specific idea, but if we take a look, actually, it starts to fall apart a little bit, a lot, right? Because if we really honestly take a look to try to find the substance, the real thing that we're running from, or trying to avoid, or hoping to escape, or trying to improve, or whatever, you can't really find it. So, specifically addressing some of this question, though, the desires behind the suffering, that doesn't make any sense to me, to be honest with you. It's like very self-help kind of thing, which there's always the presumption that there's the self who needs to be helped, who can help itself, and there's the objective reality that needs to be addressed. And none of that is actually true and none of it is findable when you take a look in just actual experience. So, yeah, I mean, I would say that it's certainly a complication. When you say it distracts from direct experiencing, no, it doesn't distract, because nothing can distract. I mean, there's only actually just what's happening, always the case. So you can't get closer to that or further from that. You can't find it and you can't lose it. You can't win. So I would suggest don't try, because it's not a game like that. It's not that kind of game. It's not a game of winning and losing. Okay. I don't know if I've addressed that one satisfactorily or not either, but you can let me know. Okay, good. We got two more. So this next one is short. I was also wondering if you still do any kind of meditation at all. No. Because there's I'm not even sure how that would work, to be honest. I can't even make sense of that, to be honest. I understand how it could be made, how it could be understood, how it would usually be understood, and how I would have probably understood it at one time, and it certainly was motivated to meditate compulsively for a number of years, because there was a hope that I could get something or avoid something. I wanted to get something good and avoid something bad, which is the nature of compulsion, right? It's I have to do this, or I really feel a strong need to do it, because if I do it, then I'll get something good out of it. But that's the carrot, and then there's the stick, which is usually the stronger motivation, which is, if I don't do it, then I will suffer in some way. I'll be punished, or I just won't get the prize. So that was what meditation was about, and it was a technique for getting something good, avoiding something bad. And as long as that was believed, that made any sense, then the compulsion was strong, and usually it was indulged. But then it it's sort of, the bottom has fallen out of that. So the notion that there's something to be gotten or something to be avoided just doesn't make any sense, because there's nothing Nothing that can be found. I mean, there's no one who would be punished or benefit from anything, nor is there anything other than what is that can be had or lost. Or, yeah. So, and, what would, but what I can say is that there's sometimes there's just an enjoyment of sort of a stillness of the present experience. That happens. Sometimes there's an enjoyment of physical relaxation. So some behaviors may occur that would appear superficially like meditation. Not really, though. I don't sit cross-legged with my eyes closed for long periods of time. I'm not sure that I rarely would do that. If I did, it would be by chance because it was, the only comfortable position, and my eyes were tired or something. But the thing is, why would any when it's seen that this is already it, and that there's no one at the center of it, there's no reference point, there's nothing to, there's no incentive to search for something else. There's just the pure, immediate directness of what is right now. And there's a certain kind of enjoyment in that. Just not what you would think. So, I don't know. See if that addressed that well enough. Last question. I still have this belief that if I am in the presence of an awakened teacher, I'll increase my chances of getting it, even in non-duality. This belief, which is probably a carryover from my spiritual practice days, was sparked off by my friend wanting to see Eckhart Tolle live in a seminar for the same reason. Did you have to pay? Is this another bogus belief? And are all the associated thoughts just as meaningless? Yes. Yep. There's any idea is just an idea. Any belief is just a belief. Any thoughts are just thoughts, and they're all meaningless. All of it is meaningless. And the hope that increase the chances of getting it. You just it may be useful to question what is it that you want to get. Are you sure you want to get it? It might not be so pleasant. Because what you're looking for cannot be found. Really can't. I mean, honestly, I'm telling you I don't know what's the right expression here. I'm telling you the truth. What's the expression you say? God's honest truth. Which is that an oxymoron? I think it's an oxymoron because it's sort of a lie to speak of God. But yeah, this is really the truth. There's nothing that can be had. There's nothing to attain. This is already it. What you're searching for is already this. So the search is for the end of the search. That's the irony, is that what we search for is just to stop searching. So but we've searched for so long and in so many ways. It's not just what we term the spiritual search. It's the search for search for happiness, or the search for money, or the search for peace, or the search for comfort, or the search for whatever. And any of it, it's a search. And the search is ultimately the search for the end of the search. Because what we want is, we want the peace. It's not a conceptual peace, it's the reality of peace, which is apparent as soon as we stop looking for it. Because then we've seen that this is already it. Not as we imagined it would be, just as it is. So we always imagined that it would be some kind of really special thing. But ultimately we don't want something special. Because special is it always requires some separation. In order for something to be special, there has to be that which is not special. So we don't want special, because that requires a lot of energy and maintenance to continue to believe in a fiction. Because it can't be actually found. There is no actual separation to be found. There's only just what is. And that's all we ever want. So it's good news. What we want is what already is. We'd be in trouble if we wanted what isn't. But what we want is just what is. So the search finally is resolved in the end of the search. The resolution is, I don't need to search. This is already it. But that, when I say it that way, it's a little bit misleading, because it may not happen that way, right? It could happen any number of ways. It doesn't matter how it happens. All that matters is that the search ends. And so, but normally I say normally, I'm not sure if that's true, but there can be a relaxation. So it's possible to notice that compulsion to search. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe if I go to this workshop, or if I go to this seminar, if I go to this live event with Eckhart Tolle, then maybe I'll get it. So you notice the compulsion, like, ooh, yeah, there's a tension. The tension is the tension because it's a search for something else, like the sense that there's something missing. I have to strive for what is missing. I have to attain that and hold on to it. So when that compulsion is noticed, it's possible to relax. Just relax. Notice where the physical tension is felt. Notice, is there any voluntary quality to that? And if it's possible, then soften or relax that tension. Which doesn't mean that you can't go to the event. Why not? Things are apparently happening all the time. Doesn't matter, you could sit cross-legged, not breathing, facing a wall in a dark room with, earmuffs on. And there's still a sense of something happening. That's fine. Who cares? You don't need to get rid of that. Don't need to control that. It's fine. So you can go to the seminar if you want to, or if you don't want to, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Who cares? If you find yourself at the seminar, then there you are. But just notice that there's often that resistance, or the resistance is, okay, there's this shouldn't be, or there's the flip side of that is there's a resistance to what is, and then there's the compulsive search for something else. flip sides of the same coin. And it's possible to soften that and relax that. And in my experience, all of that, it comes together in the body, which is, some people don't like that kind of thing because they say, but there isn't any body and whatever, which is true. But as we speak about these things, it's a useful pointer to say it's felt in the body, because that's how we normally think of it and experience it and talk about it. We're conditioned in that way, so that's fine. So we just set aside all the baggage, don't get hung up on it, and just notice, where is there felt tension in the body? Is it possible to soften that? And if so, relax, let go, soften. And then see, is there anything needed? Is there anything missing? Is there actually a problem right now? Yeah, what was the question? Yeah, so then it's seen that it is actually all meaningless. And that's fine. It's seen that the joy of meaninglessness is clear. Because without the belief in meaning, then there's the simple joy of what is, which is all that's ever been wanted. So I think that's all the questions for today. Yeah? Okay. So hopefully this has been not too boring. And if you have questions that you'd like me to run on at the mouth in response to, you can send them to me. My email address is joeylott@gmail.com. JOEYLOTT. Yep, @gmail.com. You can also visit my website, www.joeylott.com. And I'll see you next time. Till then, take care.